Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Radical Disruption. I'm your host, Maya Nicole, and in today's episode, I'm going to be talking all about what to do if your offer launch is not going as planned and you are either currently in the launch or you just ended the launch. So, tangible things that you can do if things are not going as planned. But before I dive in, I'm going to share something with you that I have honestly been very hesitant to share because it truly has been the hardest thing that I've done in my business thus far. And it is very vulnerable and extremely near and dear to my heart, at least in this phase of me going through this experience. And it's one of those things that I've thought, should I really be sharing this? And I think if I asked a business coach about this, they would probably advise against sharing it. And I usually share things after they've happened, like after the experience, after the trial, after the challenge, after the launch. And then I've had time to reflect on it and share lessons that I've learned. And while that's obviously great to do that, I really have decided with this experience that I want to share this with you right now to let you know that I'm in the trenches with you as I'm speaking. As you are listening to this, I'm in it with you, that you're not alone, and I'm with you struggling to launch an offer that I believe in with my whole being. And I'm sure that the offer that you're launching, you also believe in with your whole being. And it's just not going as planned. And it is tough to be in the trenches experiencing this again, because when you believe in something with your whole being, all you want is for other people to be able to experience what you've created because you know that it is going to transform lives, that people are going to walk away from that offer better. And offer, I should just give in terms of definition, is an umbrella statement to just anything that you are selling. So if that's a physical product, if that's an in-person event, if that is a online digital product, like anything that you are selling, or if you're doing like affiliate marketing, that also applies. So offer just means anything that you're selling. So if you're in the trenches right now, I get it. And my trench that I'm currently in, that I am just trudging through, taking things one day at a time, not giving up, because I know that things can always turn around and that I have the opportunity to change my situation. But for the Profit Maven Summit, ticket sales have been slower than expected. And I've been marketing in every way possible and in ways that I've never marketed before. I've done one-on-one outreaches. I have had podcast commercials for the summit. I have had posts on my feed, like my actual feed on Instagram, solely dedicated to the summit, which I've never done before for any other offer during any other launch. I'm sending out double, actually probably triple the amount of sales emails that I've ever had for any offer. I'm trying out all of the things, and I'm definitely not to the point where I've expended all of my options, but I am trying things and doing things in ways that I have never done before because ticket sales are slower than expected. And I just want to say the summit is going to happen, whether there's 5 people in the room or whether we sell out every single ticket and there's 100 people in the room. And I guess I should also say that there's going to be more than 5 people because there's been more than five tickets that have been sold. But when I hit launch on the summit and I posted tickets for sale, I was expecting not to sell out by any means within the first week, but I was expecting to like at least sell out like 25% of the tickets, and that did not happen. I'm pretty sure I should look back on this, but I don't think I made any sales that first week when I launched the summit tickets. And I was crapping my pants. I was like, oh, what is going on here? This is not what I expected. And so, literally, from the second that I launched Summit tickets, things did not go as expected. And they're continually not going as expected. And I have so many lessons that I know I'm going to be able to look back on. And I'll create probably multiple podcast episodes on once Summit is over. But right now, the Summit launch is still heavily in action and it's far from over because I still have 2 months to go. I'm not throwing in the towel because there's still so much time for me to market, so many different ways for me to market and test out and try, and so many more lives that I know are going to be impacted by selling these tickets. But it's really hard when you believe in your offer with every fiber of your being and it's just not going as planned. And so I wanted to share that with you as the intro to this episode, to let you know that like you're not alone. And like I'm not just speaking from past experiences, like I'm speaking from my current experiences, my current perspective. And again, like the whole reason for this episode is because it really made me think about how when things are not going well during a launch, most people think, oh, things aren't going well, I'm just going to give up, I am going to throw in the towel, or things are not going well with this offer. Maybe it's that I created the wrong offer, and you start to doubt the offer itself, and whatever it might be, you are throwing in the towel. And that happens, I see that happen so many times. And a fun statistic here, actually, when it comes to launching, is that for online offers, 70% of people statistically buy before the deadline. 70% of people. I can't speak for in-person events in terms of what that looks like, because this is my first rodeo, but that actually is a statistic, not just for my business, but like industry wide in terms of launches. So that's just very interesting. And so if you're giving up, you're missing out on what could have been a really great launch. And I've had many clients who have turned things around those last few days of launch, and they were like, those first few days were like crickets, or they were really slow, and they wanted to throw in the towel. They're like, I want to give up. Like, this must not be what I should be doing. And I'm like, no, like, we're not throwing in the towel. We're going to stick it through. And I've had many clients, again, on those very last few days before the deadline, just again, totally shift the entire launch. So let's talk about it. How to navigate a launch that isn't going according to plan, because you're not going to give up. That is not an option. You are going to continue, and there's so many things that you can do to turn this launch around, and so many lessons to be learned here. But if you really want to dive into launching and launch strategy, I highly recommend grabbing the launch bundle linked in the show notes, where I talk about all the ins and outs of launching in terms of the length of offer, depending on the offer type, the offer price point, why launches fail so you can avoid having failed launches, different calendar examples of what it looks like to launch, how in terms of marketing you should be launching. And again, I'll leave that in the show notes if you want to dive deeper into launching. Now, I don't believe that a launch is ever a failure, because there's always more that can be done or lessons to be learned. But I would even say most of the time, there's always more that can be done and lessons to be learned, because there's always more that can be done. Even if you're done with your launch and you're listening to this right now, and you're like, oh, I wish I would have listened to this while I was in it, there's still things that you can do even with your launch being over. So don't stop listening to this episode. Keep listening. Okay, now that being said, the fact that you launched at all, that you put your offer out there, is a huge, massive, mega success. And you should be so proud of yourself. And I know that's not what you want to hear. You don't want to hear, oh, Maya said to just give myself a pat on the back because I simply launched my offer. Whether it was a success or not, I launched it, and that alone is so important. I know that's not what you want to hear. And I also know the next thing that I'm about to say is also not what you want to hear, which is that failed launches are inevitable and that they happen to every business owner, if not multiple times. But those two things are really important for you to hear. The first one, because so many people are so scared to even put something out there into the world, but you have the guts to do that. And I am so proud of you for doing that. And the second one, because you're not alone. And again, a failed launch, I say failed launch because that's how people phrase it. But again, I don't see it as a failure, because there's always more that can be done, and there's always lessons that we can learn from it. Now, I want to talk to you about two different scenarios if your launch isn't going as planned. And the first scenario is if you're in the launch right now and it's not going as planned. And the second scenario is if you're done with a launch and it didn't go as planned. So scenario one first, if you're in the launch and it's not going as planned, I want you to ask yourself, and I want you to be really honest with yourself here when it comes to this question. Have you really done everything that you can to make this launch a success? Have you really done everything that you can? Did you post on your Instagram stories every single day? Did you send out emails strategically or at all? Did you use your Instagram and other social media content to drive traffic to your launch? If you're running ads, did you run ads? If you have a referral program, an affiliate program? Did you utilize all the different means to make that launch a success? If the answer is yes, then that's great. Definitely pat yourself on the back. But my guess is that it's probably a no. And this is a question that I had to ask myself. I think it was 2 months into the launch of the Profit Maven Summit and selling tickets. I had to sit down with myself and say, because I was having not a pity party moment, I was having a pity party 2 months, because I was like, woe is me. What is going on? Ticket sales to get started were really slow. They're still pretty slow, but they're not as slow as when I got started, because I definitely have shifted, obviously, the marketing strategies. And so that has helped a little bit. But again, for full transparency, I'm still figuring things out, and it's going to be amazing and life-changing, but I'm in the trenches with you. So I had to ask myself this question: have I really done everything to make the summit launch a success? And I started to I actually went back into some of the courses that I had purchased when I very first started my business. And I had some things in there that talked about launches and different launches for different types of offers. And so I started listening back to those and hearing different strategies from other people of how they've done launches. I started listening to some podcasts. Actually, when I was in Portugal for the Flowdesk retreat, I was asking some people who have done in-person events what their experience was and how they launched it. And so I was taking and compiling all these different ideas. And that's how I started to realize that there were so many different things that I hadn't done for this launch that I could be doing. And so again, it's just there's always more that can be done. And I don't necessarily mean that like you need to be sending out 5 emails a day. There is obviously a point where if you want to send out 5 emails and you have the capacity to do that, then that's amazing. But oftentimes we're like, oh my gosh, like this launch is just not going well. And I think it's very easy for us to get in our heads and be like, oh my gosh, like we've tried everything, and have that pity party moment. But it's okay, let's take a deep breath. Have we actually done everything, or is our brain just slightly exaggerating things? Okay, all that being said, if the answer is yes, if you have done everything, then that's great. But it's probably no. And that's okay, because guess what? The launch isn't over yet. So that means that there's still time to make moves and make money and make impact. Now, too many people give up before the launch is over. So do not be that person. Again, let me just remind you that there is a large percentage of people that will join before the deadline, whether that be the price increase or doors closing or whatever that might be, the discount ending or the bonus ending, whatever is happening in your launch. So don't give up before it's even over, because I promise you that you will be missing out on really big things. So maybe the thing that you just haven't done yet is just simply had the launch all the way through to the end. Like you just need to maybe stick it out. Maybe that's what you need to do that you haven't done yet. You know what I'm saying? Again, it doesn't always have to mean that you need to send out 5 emails a day. But now for the tangible things that you can do. So if you're near the end of launch, I want you to ask yourself, are there additional emails that I can send out? Maybe you have an email that is supposed to go out 24 hours before the deadline. Maybe can you send out 2 emails on that last day instead of just 1? Or maybe you can send out 1 each day on the last 3 days before the deadline versus just on that last day. Can you send out an email or additional emails to maybe a specific segment on your email list, like people who were on the wait list or people who downloaded a freebie that's like on a similar topic to your offer, and target that specific group specifically? Yes. Another idea, can you post a reel or a piece of content that relates to the topic of the offer that you can use a call to action statement, like drop XYZ word in the comments and I'll DM you a link to blank offers so that you can join in before doors close or before the price increases? Another idea, can you share a different perspective on the offer that you haven't shared before? So again, this isn't necessarily doing more in terms of increasing the amount of stories that you're using to sell or the amount of emails or the amount of posts on your feed. This is just changing the way that you're marketing your offer or shifting it or trying something new with your marketing. So instead of maybe just sharing the features and benefits, can you share the vibe of your offer? Can you post a question box where people can ask questions about the offer that you're launching? Can you ask people what's holding them back from purchasing? Can you share about why you created the offer? Think outside of the box in terms of your marketing. Another idea, can you create a highlight for your offer? Can you update the call to action statement in your bio to share the deadline for your launch? Can you advertise the discount in a different way? So maybe instead of saying $100 off, you can share the percentage off that they're saving. Like maybe it is $100 off, but maybe it's also 50% off. And maybe 50% off is going to sound more enticing to people than $100 off. You know what I'm saying? So making these small and simple tweaks, and sometimes the tweaks are going to be big and that's great, but oftentimes it's these small and simple tweaks that you can make while you're in the launch that are going to make a huge difference. And that's all to do with marketing more. And so when there are other things that you can do outside of just marketing too, when it comes to when you're in the launch and things are not going as planned. Like, for example, you can extend the deadline of the launch by a day or a few days. There's literally nothing wrong with an extension if you haven't been able to give that launch the full attention that it needs. If you're listening to this right now and you're like, hey, I'm halfway through this launch, and when things didn't go well those first few days, like I truthfully basically just stopped marketing this offer. Hey, pick things back up, maybe extend the deadline of the launch because you haven't been able to give it your full attention and time. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Another thing that you could do is you could add in a bonus for the next X amount of people who join into the offer. So again, there's so many different things that can be done here. And the worst thing that you can possibly do inside of a launch, besides give up, is to box yourself in and let your brain start to think that there's nothing else that can be done, because that is just simply not true. And you come to me and you're like, okay, Maya, but I actually have tried everything. I'm going to come to you and please, if that is, you're like, I've actually tried everything, I will have more ideas for you. I promise you that, because there's always more that can be done. And take that from me, someone who has launched over 25 different offers at all sorts of different price points, from $17 all the way up to $14,000. There's more that can be done. I've had launches that were 3 days. I've had launches that were 3 months. Actually, the summit launch is my longest launch that I've ever had, which is, I think, like a 6-month launch. So I get it. I've been there. And this is me saying that there's still more things that you can do and tweak. And again, don't think that the word more means that you have to increase capacity in terms of like emails or the amount of stories or the amount of feed posts. Like, you can do that, of course, and maybe that is the answer for you, but more could also just mean shifting your marketing, or again, just like these small and simple tweaks. And oftentimes, again, it is the small and simple things that make the biggest of differences. All right, so that's scenario 1. Now, scenario 2, if you are done with the launch, so the launch has been completed and it didn't go as planned, here are a few options for you. Number 1, if you didn't have a lot of people join that offer, you can treat that first launch like a beta launch. And you can close the doors down. You can get feedback from people on how to improve the offer, like work really closely with them and make it a really like immersive experience where they have the opportunity to help you to actually continue to build that offer. And I know you're thinking right now, like, I've already built that offer. Like, it's already there. I already launched it. There's always tweaks and improvements that you can make to your offers, no matter how amazing that offer is. You should always be refining things. And so you can have these people inside help you to refine that. And you can get really great feedback from these people and get really great testimonials that when you go to relaunch this again in a few months, in a few weeks, or whatever makes sense for this offer, you're going to be able to have a lot more success. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's so much power in having a beta launch. So even if the launch itself you didn't go into it with the intention of it being a beta launch, maybe you treat it like a beta launch. Or maybe you're just thinking, hey, this didn't go as planned. I don't want it to be a beta launch. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's your business. You get to do things the way that you want to. I'm just throwing out a few options here. But if that's not the vibe for you, guess what? Maybe you just relaunch it. It can be as simple as that. And there's nothing wrong with relaunching. It does not mean that you're a failure. It does not mean that offer is not valuable. It does not mean that people don't want that offer. There just needs to be tweaks in terms of the way that you're launching and the marketing around that offer. And it also helps too to have some social proof when it goes into those launches, which is why I do recommend treating a launch like a beta launch, just because with that beta launch, you can work closely with those students that are inside and get their testimonials and see like the transformations an offer can actually provide people that you already, like, you knew that going into it, that people were going to have amazing transformations and outcomes from that offer. But when you actually have that social proof, it's going to really help you to market that to people when you relaunch it. Now, option number 2 is you can continue on after the launch to selling that offer daily to create more awareness. So remember that a launch isn't just about making money, it's also about creating awareness of the new offer. And so maybe you had a launch for an evergreen offer, and maybe that launch didn't go as well as planned. Like maybe you didn't have as many people in terms of students join that you wanted to, or you didn't make as much money as you wanted to, whatever your goal was, and you didn't hit that goal, that's okay. Again, it doesn't mean that offer is not going to be successful long term, but it is a really good thing that for us to take a step back and say, hey, what are the lessons that I can learn from this so that I can have success in this offer moving forward? And it's amazing what you can learn when you take that step back and put on your detective glasses and be like, okay, what can I learn from this, and what areas can I adjust to make sure that this selling this offer moving forward can be a success. And again, just a reminder, a launch isn't just about making money, it's also about creating awareness of the new offer. And so even if you didn't have that success in that launch itself, the launch was still creating awareness if you were doing marketing during that launch, right? If you only posted one time during a several week launch, obviously that probably didn't create a lot of awareness. If you put the time and energy in to market that offer, you created awareness. And sometimes it just takes people a little bit more time to want to feel comfortable in purchasing that offer. And so when you can continue outside of that launch to sell that offer on a day-to-day basis, you're going to start to see sales pick up over time. And if you're not seeing that, again, it's a really good indicator to look into the marketing side of things. Another option here for you is you can extend the deadline for the launch. So even if you've closed doors and you're like, hey, let's just say on Monday was the end of the launch. Hey, guess what? You can open doors back up on Thursday. There's nothing wrong with that. What is the reason behind that? You could say, hey, I have people who are asking me questions about this offer. They didn't realize that this was the deadline. And so I'm extending the deadline for only 48 hours or only 24 hours or only 72 hours, whatever feels good for you and whatever is serving to your community. Extend the deadline. I've done that before where I've had a program and the program starts, let's just say on a Monday, but I actually have the very first call of the program, let's just say on Wednesday. I'll reopen doors after that call on Wednesday because I know on that call on Wednesday, people are going to be fired up. I'm going to be fired up. People are going to be sending me messages about how amazing the program is because I obviously believe in what it is that I'm providing people and the value that I'm providing them. And so I'm going to use those messages. I'm going to post those on my Instagram stories. Maybe I'm going to create an email and I'm going to say, hey, we just had our very first call and I decided to open up doors for just 24 hours because I know that there are a few people out there who didn't have the opportunity to join in that need to be in this program in this round because it's going to change their life. And so I'm going to open up doors for 24 hours and let a few people in. Okay. So that's another option. Another option is you can use this as a learning lesson that people might not be interested in the offer or the way that the offer was marketed. Oftentimes it's not the offer itself. And I get asked this a lot. Hey, my offer isn't selling. Should I, get rid of this offer? Should I stop selling this offer? Usually the offer itself is the last thing that I'll look at. The first thing that I'll look at though is the way that the offer was marketed, AKA you are not showcasing the value of the offer. People don't see the value of it, right? Another thing though is maybe you didn't have a large enough audience for the launch to go as you wanted it to. So maybe you had a few people who joined, but maybe you didn't have as many people join as you wanted to. It's a really good opportunity to take that step back and ask yourself, hey, maybe I didn't have the visibility. Maybe I didn't have the community, the audience size to actually have the launch size that I wanted to have. Like you have to be honest there with yourself. You need to have visibility, right? And you might be thinking, okay, let me just give an example. If you have 1,000 followers, and you're launching let's just say $1,000 program, statistically, and there's not like a set number in terms of conversions based off of your audience size, but if you're like, hey, I want to get 300 people inside during this launch, like that's just not realistic based off of your audience size and in terms of conversions. Now, in terms of conversions for your email list, there are more like industry-wide conversion numbers that you can look at. So if you're like, hey, what is a conversion rate for a sales email? Type that in. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but type that in and you can actually start to calculate based off of your email list. Again, when it comes to Instagram following, it varies so widely that there's just not a number that I could even give you there. But anyways, other things to look at would be like metrics inside of your launch. So again, following the conversation of what lessons can you learn, look at the metrics. Like, did people actually open your emails? What was your click rate on those emails? How many people turned into sales after clicking? So maybe you had a really great click rate, but you didn't have a lot of people who were buying. Okay, then I need to be looking at my sales page, right? So there, you can go through this process and be a detective. So if you had people who were opening your emails, okay, great. Were people clicking? Okay, if people weren't clicking, then I obviously need to make sure that the marketing in my emails is more enticing and really showcases the value of the offer, because people weren't even clicking on the sales page. Or maybe people did click and they got to the sales page, but you didn't have a lot of people buying. Okay, what's the disconnect between the sales page and the checkout page? Well, it's obviously going to be the sales page, right? People didn't see the value when they got to the sales page, or there was some sort of disconnect maybe between your email and the way you were presenting the offer in your email and then how the offer was presented in your sales page. Like, there's so many different things that you can look at there. And that's another reason why email marketing is really amazing when you're utilizing it for launches, is because it does give you a lot better data than if you were just to post on your Instagram stories and send people to a sales page. You just don't have as much data there in terms of like open rates and click rates and convert, all of that good stuff. So anyways, lots of different things that you can do there. Another thing that you could do as well in terms of options is maybe you send out a feedback form to everyone who you sent out an email to for the offer, but the people that didn't purchase it, ask them why. Give them I'm talking like a 2 to 3 question feedback form, and say that if you take 60 seconds to fill this out, you'll be entered into a giveaway to maybe win like a $50 Amazon gift card or something like that. So you give them the incentive to actually fill out the form, but it's going to give you really great data to understand why that offer isn't selling. So that's another option there for you. And then the last option, and this isn't like actually the last option. Again, I could come up with lots more things that you could do, but just another really great one that you could play around with is creating maybe a smaller, more beginning offer that will actually act as a stepping stone into the offer that you just launched that didn't go as planned. So your audience maybe isn't ready for this in-depth and advanced offer that you might have just launched. So maybe you need to meet them where they're at right now and use a smaller, more basic offer. Basic not meaning less valuable, it's just a different stage in their journey, and you can utilize that to lead them into maybe that larger, more in-depth or advanced offer. So again, I hope that this gives you some ideas as to how you can pivot in those two different scenarios. So whether you are in the launch right now or whether you just got out of the launch, and different things that you can do if it didn't go as planned. And the biggest thing though is not letting it stop you from showing up and serving your audience. Yes, maybe you have a moment of tears, maybe you have your pity party, and that's okay. You're human. I have those all the time, but don't let it be a long lasting thing, because a failed launch, or aka a launch that just didn't go as planned, is just a stepping stone to success. And the fact that you're listening to this podcast, it means that you care about succeeding, and the best thing that you can do is implementing what you learned. So do not give up. You've got this. And if you want additional support when it comes to launching your offer and more strategic structures when it comes to that launch, in terms of how many emails to send out, when to send out those emails, how long should the launch be based off of price points of an offer, check out the launch bundle. It's in the show notes. It's really amazing and I highly recommend it.